And welcome to our Kind Voice on Employment, Opportunity, and Innovation. I'm your host, David Levins, and tonight I'm thrilled to be joined by Matt and Simone Weber. They run the Table Grace Cafe in Omaha, Nebraska. Matt, Simone, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. Can you give us an overview of what Table Grace Cafe is?
Yeah, Table Grace Cafe is the flagship program of our nonprofit organization, Table Grace Ministries, which we incorporated back in 2008. And our mission at Table Grace Cafe is nourishing hungry bodies and souls. And the way we do that is by bringing people of all walks of life together every day for lunch. It's a cafe with no prices on the menu. And what we're doing is creating a level playing field on the socioeconomic platform so that no matter if people have money or don't, or whatever their life situation may be, they can come to Table Grace Cafe and get a healthy gourmet meal, and they can contribute to their community in whatever way they're able to. So it's a free will donation for the meals. If people would like to donate money, they can do that. But if they'd like to donate their time or their talent, they can do that as well.
It's a beautiful mission, and it seems you guys have it organized very well. Can you kind of walk through the process when somebody walks in and they order lunch? What is the process as they go through the checkout? Because normally you would go to the checkout and you would pay.
Sure. Well, Table Grace is a quick-serve restaurant, so and the menu is pizza, salad, and soup. And instead of a point of sale, what we have is called a point of accountability. So our front counter has a donation box instead of a cash register. And when people come in, the first thing we do, if they've been there before and we already have a relationship, we just say, would you like to volunteer or donate monetarily today? And then if they'd like to donate monetarily, they place their donation in the donation box. And if they'd like to volunteer, we have a list of chores, and we just bring them back to the back of the house and put them to work.
Nice. So I was wondering how it flows and how you organized it. So you just set that expectation right up front, and you know how things will flow. Now, it's such a beautiful name, Table Grace Cafe. How did you come up with that name?
Well, several years ago, we were going down to Nashville once a year for the Gospel Music Association event that they were having. I'm a singer and a songwriter, and so one year they had invited us to consider incorporating as nonprofit musicians. And so I came back and talked with Matt, who is also my husband, and said, hey, I think we ought to think about this to incorporate as a nonprofit singer so that people who are interested in supporting the music can contribute to us and get, kind of the tax write-off, that kind of thing, and we can go on our way serving through music. And at that time, we kind of put our heads together and thought, well, what if we combined our gifts and talents and came up with a local mission outreach that people could really sink their teeth into and give their time and effort toward feeding hungry people. And so, gathering around the table, we felt is really instrumental in bringing community together and bringing people together of all walks of life. And it's really the central point in a family as well. And so that's where the table came from. Of course, Grace happens to be the name of one of our founding donors, and she was such a lovely lady to be able to give of her monetary donation to help us get started. And then the cafe, of course, just falls in right behind that, because that's what we do every day, is serve people at a cafe.
Wow, what a neat story. And it started off, your thinking started off as trying to think of a way to share your music, and then it evolved from there to share much more. But can you circle back and tell me how the music helps tie it together?
Sure. So we both have a heart for mission. In fact, before we even came up with this idea, we had considered doing mission work abroad in different countries. And we also both resonate with music in a big way, and music as a vehicle to really move people's hearts and souls toward being compassionate to one another in a very ongoing sort of physical needs kind of way. And so music, we believe, is a vehicle within the cafe as well as outside of the cafe to really engage people in the work that we're doing day in and day out. And so this last year, as we moved forward on our latest recording, an album, I decided to write music that particularly has the mission of Table Grace embedded in the song to continue to draw people's attention to what we are doing together as a community at Table Grace Cafe. So music is the vehicle that we tell the story, whether that's in person or at Table Grace or at other organizations, churches, businesses, things like that. And we hope that it continues to draw people to become active in the mission of serving each other.
Excellent. That's a beautiful way to do it, and I want to get into that a little bit more, but you set up your song so perfectly. I think it's a good idea to go ahead and play Table of Grace by Simone Weber.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Nursing hungry bodies and souls, no matter how they pay, working side by side, the Spirit leads the way. The journey is so much richer as we work and sing together. Healing energy ignites in the life of my brother. Table Grace Cafe is the place for you. Food and conversation, and your soul will be renewed. Your aching spirit so longs to be connected. Come and see for yourself. Table Grace Cafe tastes like home. 1611 and a half Barnum Street is a place where all diversity meets. No prices on our menu screen. Come and see. Everyone has something to give. Everyone inspires someone to live a better version of their life, even in the midst of daily strife. See for yourself, it's a different way to be community every day, building toward a green tomorrow. Love and grace will heal our sorrow. Table Grace Cafe is the place for you. Food and conversation, and your soul will be renewed. Your aching spirit so longs to be connected. Come and see for yourself. Table Grace Cafe tastes like home. Come and see for yourself. Table Grace Cafe tastes like home.
What a wonderful song. It's just so uplifting and just makes one want to just come down there. Do you try to use music to set the tone for the spirit of the cafe?
Yes, we have a Music with a Mission on Tuesdays at 1:00, which is our focal point of the live music at the current time. And during that hour, we invite people that are interested in contributing that day with their gifts and talents to join with me and sing and play whatever music happens to be on their heart that day. And so, yes, and the other piece is that if somebody comes in on a different day and they decide that they would prefer to donate through a gift of song or, playing their guitar or something like that, they might just set up and offer that music throughout the eating time as their gift and contribution to Table Grace Cafe that day.
Wow. It's such a beautiful thing. And music connects ideas better than words. Even if there were no words in that song, the music itself is so uplifting. Can you kind of explain how music does its magic?
How music does its magic?
Yeah, let me give you a little example. When I started A Kind Voice, I had a bunch of clunky words, and people wrote songs that beautifully embodied the spirit. And I'm like, yes, that's it. I couldn't quite say it myself, and I needed a song to say. It's like magical to me.
Yeah. Well, I think that music has the power, to heal. I think music has a way of bringing people together across multiple diversities, and I think it has a way of opening hearts that words can't quite get at. And so with you've got a few different things at play when you have a song. You've got the words that are coming from the songwriter, and hopefully connecting kind of a universal message to all who hear it. And then you have the melody that can, move in certain ways that, like you said, can be inspiring all on its own. And the rhythm, and then you have the arrangement of the musicians that all add to the mix of a song like that. I mean, when you get it all completely recorded in a nice polished studio, you really have a beautiful combination of the message, the lyrics, the melody, and then the arrangement of the song. And if somebody walks in, what we've found is that we're all hungry. We're all hungry for something. 3 times a day, we're all hungry for food. And oftentimes our souls are hungry for nourishment as well. And that's kind of where our mission statement came from. The overarching mission statement of Table Grace is nourishing hungry bodies and souls through music. And so we really believe that the music is a vehicle to nourish the soul and to really connect people. And we've had some people come in and say, wow, not only are we eating this amazing food that gives our bodies what we need, but there's this music that connects all of us and really is able to cross some of the barriers and boundaries, that masks, I guess, that we all wear. It just sort of breaks through those and offers a new way of being community.
So is one of the things comes out of an experience in your cafe, over time do your customers really get more music, do their spirits become more musical, if you will?
Well, I'd like to share a couple of examples about how, like, the power of how music builds community. We live in a world of great socioeconomic inequality, and that is something that contributes to a lot of difficult issues that we face as a society. And we have people at Table Grace who participate in the music with a mission on a weekly basis, who, if you bump into them on the street, or if you were just to meet them and get to know them outside of the music, you would be encountering a person who is difficult to relate to. So someone who's a working class individual, middle class person in the United States that has a full-time job, makes enough money to have a home and take care of a family, relating to some of the clientele that we have at Table Grace, some of these people have a difficult history, a difficult past, whether they're homeless or whether they've been in jail or whether they have felonies on their records or whatever the case may be. Whatever puts certain individuals on the fringes of our society makes them difficult to relate to on an everyday basis. And we have people like that who participate in the music every week at Table Grace. And for that 1 hour that we are sitting there with our instruments, delivering music, making music together, there is no boundary. It's all one united experience. Everyone is doing the same thing. Everybody's trying to accomplish the same thing. Like the communication that happens with that music, it really does unite everyone, not just the people making the music, but the people enjoying it and experiencing it too. It's a platform that really unites people.
It sounds like a beautiful thing. I'm hopeful to get up to Omaha one day to see it. Now, as I research different places, I find so many good things about the community in Omaha, Nebraska. And just having visited a couple of times, is there one thing that drives such a community spirit in Omaha, Nebraska? A couple of things that make it such a cool place?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we both grew up in the Midwest, and then we spent some time out in New York City before returning here to Omaha. And I think that Omaha tends to be kind of a big, small town, is how I've experienced it. And so it's kind of like everybody has come here maybe. I mean, some people grew up here in Omaha, but a lot of folks have moved in from other small towns all over Nebraska. And they kind of brought that same spirit, I think, of just community, taking care of one another, staying connected and being kind and compassionate to one another. I don't know, Matt, do you have something else on that?
Yeah, I would echo that. I think that saying that it's a big, small town is a good description, and there's that Midwestern cultural spirit that kind of brings people together around common good. And I think there's a lot of pride in the different things that Omaha has to offer. People take pride in it, and that's something that unites us as a community.
Do you think a business like yours would work well in a bigger city or small town?
I think the things that make a community restaurant work well are, first and foremost, socioeconomic diversity in any neighborhood. So, actually, Table Grace was modeled after a restaurant in Denver called the Same Cafe, SAME, which is an acronym for So All May Eat. And
nice.
Yeah, so Denver's bigger than Omaha, and it has a small handful of community restaurants. There are multiple ones there. I think it does work well in larger cities, but it can work well in smaller cities too. I think that anyone who wants to start a community cafe needs to look for socioeconomic diversity.
Okay, and I want to explore the connection with the Same Cafe a little bit, but we need to take our first break, so we'll be right back.
The alchemy of kindness is one that we believe. When we reach out to each other, we both receive.
Hi, I'm Bruce Grammel, and I'm one of the original hosts on A Kind Voice Radio. My song, The Alchemy of Kindness, is about the good things that happen when kind voices come together. What you're about to hear is an invitation from author Mara Wilson, whose 46-year-old buddy, Al Scarborough, from a game-playing group, needs a new heart. So I'm asking you to please open your heart to Al's story and imagine if we can all work together to make our world a kinder, more connected place.
Imagine your own heart betraying you with every beat. Imagine you're 46 and waiting for a heart transplant. Imagine you're told you need $120,000 to be saved. Imagine your time running out with every beat of your heart. Al Scarborough doesn't have to imagine it. He's living it. Now imagine that you helped Al by sharing his story with your family or friends. Imagine his story going viral. Imagine Al with a new heart. Please help save Al's life. You can find more information about Al Scarborough on Facebook at We Heart Al or at Al Scarborough Support Team on GoFundMe.com. Thank you.
When kind voices come together, it seems we're never alone. Kind Voice Radio.
And welcome back to Kind Voice on Employment, Opportunity, and Innovation. Guys, I really hope you check out Facebook/A Kind Voice and share that post for the spot you just heard about Al Scarborough. His situation is very urgent, and the more people we get that message in front of, the more of an opportunity it creates to get Al the help he needs. So I appreciate it if you do that. And we're talking with Matt and Simone Weber of Table Grace Cafe. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And before we left for the break, we talked a little bit about the Same Cafe. Before you opened up this, did you guys spend time in the Same Cafe to learn about what they did?
Yeah, actually, the first program we did as Table Grace Ministries in terms of hunger outreach was a personal chef service for single moms. And we operated out of a church kitchen for about 18 months doing this personal chef service. And during that time, between 2009 and 2010, one of the summers, some college kids came to help prepare meals for the single moms, and one of the college kids had been to Denver on a spring break trip and had been to the same cafe and told me about. And as a trained chef, hearing about a restaurant with no prices and doing what we were doing already in Omaha, I was really, really intrigued by that concept of a community restaurant and a restaurant with no prices. So as soon as I heard about this, I decided I needed to go to Denver and learn more about it. So it wasn't more than a few months later that I jumped on a plane and flew out to Denver and spent a whole day at the same cafe volunteering, working in their kitchen and learning how they did it there. And when I came back to Omaha, I decided, Omaha needs a community restaurant, and we're going to start one. And that's what we did.
Wow, how beautiful. And to have that very focused program to help people who very much needed that personal chef for single moms. How did that idea come about?
Simone and I lived in New York City for about 3 years. I got my chef training there. I went to the Natural Gourmet Institute for Food and Healing, which is one of the only culinary programs in the country that's accredited and focuses on health supportive cooking. And one of the career tracks, I guess, that I saw other people doing was to be a personal chef, to work in people's homes who could afford to hire a chef for their family, who would come in and cook meals specifically catered to the family's needs, likes, dislikes, allergies, etc. And I did a little bit of that while I was out there in New York. And so it was a skill set that I had sort of developed in my culinary training. And so when we came up with the concept for Table Grace Ministries, I was just kind of thinking about what I had to offer as a chef and what could I do in Omaha to benefit a demographic of people in need. And so I thought about the personal chef concept and thought about, well, who in our community is in need of a personal chef service, who is not necessarily well-to-do or able to afford it on their own, and how can we apply this? And so we came up with the demographic of single mothers, and that's how that started.
And getting a business off the ground, a lot of people don't do it, so great concept, but how did you start to connect with a single mom? How did it get rolling?
It was kind of word of mouth, but go ahead, Simone.
Well, I was going to say I was working at a church full-time at that time and giving music lessons to the kids in the neighborhood. And so a couple of the families that I was giving lessons to at that church were the ones we approached first because we knew that they were single moms and they had 2 or 3 or 4 kids each. And so we thought, well, let's just start here and kind of use that as a pilot opportunity and see if they'll work with us and we can work with them. And then we went from there.
I love the words you use in pilot opportunity to see what happens and to build upon it. And now that you guys are successful, you have an intern program where you're helping others get on their feet and maybe opening up businesses. Can you talk about your intern program?
Yeah, it's actually very simple. And what this program is it's for people who are in transition in life. So people who may need help developing a work history for their resume. So what we offer is basically a 10-day training program in restaurant work. So, for example, Table Grace Cafe is located in downtown Omaha, and we're only 3 blocks from the Douglas County Jail, and we are within walking distance of one of the homeless shelters. So we're located in a part of town where people in transition may be passing through our neighborhood. We're only a half a block away from the courthouse, from the Douglas County Courthouse, And so people of all walks of life are passing through, and if people have a felony on their record, or if they've been homeless and they don't have a job history, they can come to Table Grace and basically get work experience. And what we find is after their 10 days at Table Grace, we will have a very good idea of how dependable they are. If they show up and they fulfill their schedule for those 10 days, we know that they are probably a good candidate for going out and finding an entry-level job. And so we give them a letter of recommendation from us with our letterhead. We give them help with their resume, and then we give them some coaching in terms of going and interviewing for those jobs.
Wow, it's a beautiful thing you're doing. Now, if the homeless person, it's almost like a chicken and an egg thing. Do you work with other organizations who could help fund them shelter during this internship program so that they have a stable place to sleep so they can successfully complete the intern program?
Absolutely. There are a few different partners we have in the community, and some of them have offered housing. And, the 10-day program is one example of how people can come and get work experience at Table Grace. Some other people are referred by other agencies. For example, Douglas County here in Nebraska has a drug courts program. So people who have drug offenses, who have some sort of a citation for a drug offense, can, and especially if they have a felony on their record, they can go through the Douglas County Drug Court Program, which typically lasts a minimum of 12 months. Between 12 and 18 months, I think, is the average graduation rate. But if they go through that program successfully, they get to erase that felony from their record. And one of the criteria for completing and graduating from that program is to do 20 hours of community service the entire time they're in that program. And so we've had people in the drug court program come and do their community service at Table Grace. And so we've actually fostered that relationship for an entire year. And then there are other organizations like Heartland Family Services who help people in transition find housing and subsidize the housing portion that they need while they're doing their community service. And there are a lot of different partnerships that help make these success stories a reality.
Well, and that's impressive how you connected with so many different organizations to make this happen. How many people have been through the intern program so far?
Last year, we had about 40 people go through the program, and we know of 20 people finished, and of those 20, we know about 10 were successful and found jobs afterwards.
Wow, that's great to be able to help so many people. Is there one or two stories that really touched your heart that you could share with us?
Absolutely. One of my favorite stories is a young woman who came to Table Grace for the first time when she was about 8 months pregnant. And she came to Table Grace because she needed a meal, and she volunteered. And that's one of the great things about how we operate at Table Grace. When we have our point of accountability and we ask people right away, would you like to volunteer or would you like to donate? If they come back and volunteer, inevitably we're going to learn their name, and if they come back a second day, we're gonna build a relationship with them. And so we got to know this young woman. We got to know that she was in some trouble. She was 8 months pregnant, and she was being evicted from her apartment, and she was facing drug charges because the apartment she was living in was a hotbed of drug activity, unfortunately. So about a month later, she gave birth to a baby son, and unfortunately had to give her son up for adoption, and she was facing drug charges. And she ended up in the Douglas County drug court system, and she ended up at a homeless shelter. And she needed 20 hours of community service in order to repay her debt to society, and she did her community service at Table Grace Cafe. And about 6 months after she started her community service project, her counselor asked her to go ahead and find a paying job. She said, it's time to graduate from volunteering. You're ready to find a paying job. Well, at this point, she was working at Table Grace 20 hours a week. We were in a growth period, and she had learned how to do a lot of things around our restaurant, like she was making our pizza dough, and I was actually depending on her every day. And so I was going to miss her if she got a job somewhere else, and so I asked if it would be okay if we hired her. And so she got hired at Table Grace part-time, and that was about the 6-month mark. About 6 months after that, Heartland Family Services helped her find an apartment. She was getting regular visitations with her son, and a few months after that, she had her own apartment. She had full custody of her son, and she had a job at Table Grace Cafe. And so she went from pregnant and homeless to basically a complete 180 of having a stable job, a stable place to live, and her family back.
Wow, what a beautiful story. So wonderful that you guys were able to help her in this way. I mean, it's really a hand up you gave her, and now she has her life together. So it's a very beautiful thing you're doing. How many people besides you work at the Table Grace Cafe?
Yeah, we're very grassroots, and I'm actually the only full-time employee, so I'm the CEO of the organization. Everyone else is part-time. Simone is a half-time person. Actually, I keep saying that, and I keep forgetting that we've transitioned our kitchen manager into a full-time position. So now we actually have 2 full-time positions. We have a total of 8 employees, and we have 2 full-time and then 6 part-time.
And then how many volunteers in a typical week?
In a week, we have probably close to 60 volunteers.
Wow. And what is the typical day like in the Table Grace Cafe?
Well, we're open for lunch from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and whoever's in charge for the day, whether it's myself or our kitchen manager, we usually show up around 8:30 and start making a plan for the day. We work with donated food as a nonprofit. We get about 80% of our food that we need to use in the restaurant donated and only need to purchase about 20%. So that's why we kind of have a simple menu of pizza, salad, and soup, because it offers flexibility, and you can put almost anything you'd like to into a soup. And so we plan the menu for the day. We offer 2 different soups, 2 different salads, and 2 different pizzas each day. And we just, again, work with the ingredients that we have available to us. And so we get there in the morning, we make a plan for the day. We usually have another part-time staff person show up mid-morning. And then at 11 o'clock, we are ready to serve food with scratch-made pizza, salad, and soup. We have a chore list ready to go for our patrons who walk in and need to volunteer for the day. And then we typically serve, last year it was an average of 46 people a day in those 3 hours. And we're done by 2 o'clock. And a lot of our patrons know that they can plan to help us close for the day. So a lot of times we have volunteers helping us sweep and mop and wipe down our tables and stack our chairs and close up shop for the day.
It sounds like an incredibly well thought out operation, and an operation that it sounds like it keeps evolving. Are you satisfied with where you are right now? Or is there a new level of service or serving that you'd like to provide the community?
There's definitely room for growth, and one of the ways we'd like to grow is right now consistently, and we've been open almost 5 years now. We're getting ready to celebrate our 5-year anniversary this spring, and consistently the balance of patronage has been about 20% working professional and 80% low to no income patrons, and we'd really like to balance that more. You know, ideally it'd be 50-50. Most of the other community cafes in the country are actually flip-flopped from us. They have more like a 70% paying clientele and only about a 30% low to no income. So that's one way we'd like to grow. We're also in conversation right now about a second location, adding another location in the community. And then another way we've been growing a lot in the last year, and we will continue to grow, is our catering service. And that's a traditional business model where we offer catering, Table Grace Cafe catering in the community, and that helps us bring in money to offset our what we lose in the door each day in the cafe.
And a musical component to the growth in the future is we go about 12 times a year to a variety of locations to kind of tell the story through concerts or worship or things like that. And so we will continue to do that and perhaps add more dates as we're releasing this album, as well as invite more community participation within the cafe of other local musicians and musical artists who could potentially participate there to continue to grow the musical community that we are kind of a hub for people to cross paths and to use their gifts and talents and maybe to try out their new songs before they go on the road or, things like that.
Oh, when's the album going to be released?
Oh, the release date is the same date that we're celebrating our 5-year anniversary of Table Grace Cafe, which is April 8th. It's a Friday evening. We're going to have a concert and an event celebrating the work that we do at Table Grace. And then it will be available on iTunes and CD Baby and locally, and then, of course, anywhere that we perform.
Excellent. What is the title on the album?
It's Table Grace Cafe.
Oh, keeps it simple. So we're going to take a final break, and we'll be right back after this.
There's nothing wrong with reaching out when you need. I'll be there for you, and maybe you can be for me. With a kind voice, a few kind words, an open ear for when you need to be heard, a warm heart. We can make that choice to be a kind voice, a few kind.
Hi, my name is Azim Kamisa. In January of 1995, while delivering pizzas to help him through college, my son Tariq was senselessly murdered by a 14-year-old gang member. Tariq was a wonderful young man who could light up the room with a joke. In the search to relieve my pain, I needed to find a way to use the sadness from this tragedy to help others. So by the end of 1995, after months of agonizing pain and introspection, I chose to start an organization to help stop kids from killing kids. And I reached out in forgiveness to the killer's grandfather and guardian in brotherhood. We have worked together, speaking to over 1 million youth and adults all over the world in bringing the lessons of peace and nonviolence for 20 continuous years. Now I'm asking you to add your kind voice to our efforts. For a peaceful world, we all need to embrace peace and forgiveness. We need you as a peacemaker, having forgiven the past, any enemies, and at last having forgiven yourself for any wrongdoing. To learn more, go to my website. It's azimkamisa.com, which is azimkamisa.com. It is indeed time for peace.
A Kind Voice Radio.
Welcome back to Kind Voice on Employment, Opportunity, and Innovation. I'm your host, David Levins, and we're here with Simone and Matt Weber. So, Simone, Matt shared a beautiful story. Is there one story that really resonates with you from your experience at Table Grace Cafe?
Yes, I'll share a musical story, I guess. So as Matt said, there's a whole variety of people that are drawn to the music, and some of which you would say are kind of on the edge of society. This one particular individual was probably estranged from his family and his significant other, and also spent time in jail, and I believe has multiple mental instabilities that are constantly being managed. And for a couple of years, he's been coming, regularly to the music with a mission. And he would show up at, sometimes 11:15 and get his lunch and say hello to everybody and just kind of be that cheery presence in the cafe. You just always knew that, he was there and he was greeting people and he was happy to see you when you came in. And he has a couple of specific songs that he likes to sing every single week and just gets so much joy out of that. And so it's just it's really beautiful to see how somebody like that, without a family of his own at home, has really claimed Table Grace, the musicians, the people that come and go regularly, as his mainstay and as his sort of extended family. And then one step further than that, he then gets to contribute with his voice, which he, to my knowledge, he doesn't use singing or music anywhere else in his life. And so it's just a neat example of how much healing can come through that opportunity of music.
That's a beautiful story. I know there's a whole discipline of music therapy, but would you call what you guys do music therapy, or just people getting together and sharing their kind voices?
Well, it's interesting because I've thought about that from time to time. When I was going to school for music education, I explored music therapy a little bit, and, you know, that's, of course, more in the setting of, well, it can be in a variety of settings, but I would say Table Grace could be considered a form of music therapy, because oftentimes I'm up there thinking, you know, we've done a lot of concerts, we've done a lot of worship services, we've been in performance settings, and Table Grace is a unique one in that it really is about participating. It's really about being a part of what's going on there, and it really does, I think, move people in a different way, because you know pretty much everybody's names. You're in a small room. Oftentimes people are participating with the songs, and so I think it could be considered a form of music therapy. It's not intentional music therapy, like we don't have a degree to be offering that. But I think that, you know, people come alive in a different way when they get into a song, or when they're hearing a song or participating in that way.
It sounds like such a beautiful thing. And I'm just wanted to know if you guys have any advice or suggestions for someone who sees what you guys are doing as such a beautiful way of serving and would want to do the same thing themselves in their town.
I would say, you know, go for it. Trust that the path will be made clear as you walk. I think that's been one of the things. I want to circle back for a minute. Part of the name Grace has to do with the fact that we believe that grace is offered to everyone, no matter where anybody's coming from, no matter what they or we may have done on any given day, but that grace is really there and offered to each person in that moment, in that interaction of serving one another. And so I would just encourage people to find what it is that they're passionate about, and if it's something like this, then lean into it and start telling the story, invite others into the story, invite others to engage in what they can do to contribute to the community cafe atmosphere, because it's almost like it becomes the personality of the whole group of people that are there. It's not just one of us, it's all of us working together, and as you step, the path is made clear.
And I love that saying, as you step, because it implies just believing in what you're doing as you walk in the path. Now, if somebody wanted to open up a cafe like this, is music the key element, that community together? You know, or can someone build community without the music component and maybe have another component like storytelling or some other way to connect the community?
I think there's multiple ways to do it. You know, another thing that we didn't talk much about tonight, but that happens at Table Grace, is art, visual art. We have art hanging on our walls, and all of the art that's hanging on our walls at Table Grace came from local people. But if people want a resource in terms of starting a community restaurant, they should check out oneworldeverybodyeats.org. And that's a foundation that was started by one of the original community cafe entrepreneurs, Denise Soretta, and she started One World Cafe in Salt Lake City. And she started this foundation that's basically become a network for all of the community restaurants in the country.
And how many community restaurants are there in the country?
There was, last time I checked the website, in terms of One World, it was around 50.
Are there some things that make a community restaurant successful? Is a simple menu an important part of it?
It kind of depends on your business model. I mean, there is some variety out there. but a simple menu, I would say, is one thing, especially if you're going to be relying on donated food items. But, an area of your community that has socioeconomic diversity, I would say, is another key element.
Is there some way that this impacted you and kind of changed who you are from the person who started the cafe 5 years ago?
For me, I would say there's grace. Like Simone was talking about earlier, there's grace, which, again, I believe, too, it's available to everyone, no matter who you are. And in addition to that, I would say gratitude. I've learned that if I can learn to be grateful in all things, that blessing will come as a result of that. So gratitude, just learning gratitude.
Wow, what a beautiful, and we're coming to the close. That's a beautiful way to close, just gratefulness. It's kind of like a fuel that energizes one. So, Simone, is there one way that you were impacted by this work you've done, how it shaped you a little bit?
Yeah, I would say, because we're going every day to meet this group of people, whoever comes, we don't know if people are going to be coming from the shelters. We don't know if people are going to be coming from, the businesses right around there, but we're just kind of there for people. And part of my role in the cafe is more of a hostess, so I'm meeting people where they are, and if they need somebody to talk to, being there to listen. And I think over the years, one of the things that I've learned and continue to learn is that though people might stumble over themselves multiple times, we have the opportunity to continue to walk alongside and be that steady voice of, there is grace, and here's another meal, and let's be in this community together. Because I think it's one thing to think that we're going to, be able to witness the transformation of every single person that walks through the door. I think that would be the dream. That would be my dream, is that we can really offer people the opportunity to grow into the best version of themselves that they can possibly be, whether that's through music or whether that's through serving in the kitchen or becoming a culinary expert or whatever it is. But sometimes people just keep going over and over their difficulties and their challenges. And so I think that the thing that I continue to learn is, we show up anyway, and we do the work to which we have been called in the passions that we have, and we continue to, like Matt said, be grateful for the opportunity to serve one another in this way and to utilize our gifts and talents to be an inspiration to others.
Wow. Guys, I'm grateful you both joined me tonight. Such a beautiful story you're creating, and I hope the show's heard by many people and inspires some people. So thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Excellent. Have a good night, guys. And that was Matt and Simone Weber from Table Grace Cafe. And this is an inspirational story on so many different levels. I hope you guys go out and use your kind voice to make a difference in somebody's life. Have a good night.
Here in our garden, we gather to share all that's inside of us, how much we care. Find strengths in our differences and reach common ground. Celebrate our unity in a tapestry of loving sound. So make a kind choice with your kind voice, and united we will find our kind voices inside, which sing out in unity, creating community and bringing us together as one. Some of us make movies, some of us sing songs, some find forgiveness for a choice that was wrong. Some of us feed children, some help people in need, and all of us in our own way are planting a loving seed. When we make a kind choice with our kind voice and united, we find our kind voices inside, which sing out in unity, creating community and bringing us together as one. And each moment brings on changes, and each change helps us to see that we're all of us a part of our sweet humanity. And we each bring something special as we cultivate our soul, while the kindness deep within us makes us whole. Kind choice with your kind voice, and united we'll find our kind voices inside, which sing out in unity, creating community and bringing us together as one.